Before I get started today, if my content is something that you enjoy, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell and you can get notifications every time I make a new video. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you could do one or more of those things, it would really help my channel to grow, feed my ego, appease the algorithm gods, and help me to make more content just like this. Alright, I did some current stuff. I talked about the Centenary special, I talked about the Disney streaming deal that everyone is somehow simultaneously underreacting to and overreacting to, completely breaking all known laws of causality, and now it's time for me to get back to what I do best. Gushing over audio plays that came out 2 decades ago, while being a total shill for a company that will never pay me for my efforts. That's right mate, it's Big Finish time, and we are picking up right where we left off with the second series of the 8th Doctor plays. It's where they really start to find their stride. The first 5 stories were largely hit and miss. There were some very good ones, and some great moments, but there was also a lot of weirdness and a lot of shit that simply did not work. Like, for example, having the companion forced into sex work by a satanic-themed gentleman's club, and really shitty American accents. Big Finish was still a new company at the time, and they had only just gotten the rights to the franchise, taking their first tentative steps and figuring out what they want to do, and how the hell they're going to achieve longevity in an era where anything with the Doctor Who name on it seemed to be cursed, except for the new adventure novels. But in this second part of the Charley arc, I find myself struggling to find anything bad to say about it. For the most part, each story goes from strength to strength, building on each other into a climax that is lore-heavy, emotional, and one of the best things the Big Finish has ever released, which cemented them in the eyes of their audience, and became the basis for a lot of what Big Finish did in the future. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The second series of the Charley arc starts with the Chimes of Midnight, written by old mate Robert Sherman, the bloke who wrote Jubilee and Dalek in the new show, and he also wrote 2 really good stories involving a companion from the comics named Frobisher, who just so happens to be a shape-shifting penguin private eye who talks in a film noir voice. No, I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. This is a thing that exists, and I love it. But Chimes is considered to be one of his best works. It's definitely one of my favourites, and one that I recommend that you start with if you're looking to get into Big Finish at all, even if it's not for Doctor Who stuff. I mean, they do other stuff. Look, they did Day of the Triffids. My dad loves that story for some reason. But it's also one of those stories that I can't really explain anything about without giving too much away. Robert Sherman does this a lot, and he's not exactly a marketer's best friend. Even the brief plot synopsis on the Big Finish website I feel gives way too much away. I can't promise that I won't either. I will try. I will endeavour to. I guess you can call it a Christmas special, but don't go into it thinking that it's like something from the Davies or Moffat era that tend to spew rainbows out of every single orifice. Last time I watched one of those, the mess was incredible. Chimes is way different to that, and it works just as well as something for Halloween. It's a murder mystery with a twist where the Doctor and Charley are forced to take on the roles of detectives, solving macabre murders that seem to have absolutely no motive. It's spooky, eerie, dripping with atmosphere, melancholic, funny at times, sadistic at others, and features themes of suicide, death, and the hopeless plight of the lower classes who have to toil and suffer below the stairs for the pleasure of the lords and ladies they serve, all the while knowing that they can never elevate their situation in life. Oh, also plum pudding.
Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without one of your plum puddings.
Back in Victorian and Edwardian times, and going back even to the Middle Ages, you were pretty much stuck in the class that you were born into. The commoners and the aristocrats led separate lives, one supporting the other. And if you were born as a commoner, it was near impossible to elevate your status unless you were adopted from a really young age. One thing that keeps popping up in Sherman's work is class struggle, and it's on full display here, which is very confronting to Charley, who is an aristo herself, lucky enough to be born into a life of privilege and grow up in a house much like this one, coming face to face with the sheer hopelessness of the people who provide for her opulent lifestyle, which she so willingly cast aside. These people are nothing, they're nobody, and they can never amount to anything aside from a short life of servitude to masters who they will never be equal to. It's a crushing revelation which, to someone like Charley, is nothing short of traumatizing, although that might just be all the plum pudding. I'm not going to spoil anything else for you, just be aware that this one is essential listening. It is bloody brilliant, I would even say there's a masterpiece. Instead of the Moffat or the Davies Christmas specials, I throw this one on Christmas Eve, and so should you. The next one is Seasons of Fear, another favourite of mine which, in my view, is a little underrated. The Doctor finally takes Charley to Singapore on New Year's Eve in 1930 to keep her appointment with the bloke she was talking about in the first one. Letting them get acquainted, the Doctor sits in the tea garden and is minding his own business wearing the Fifth Doctor's hat when a man named Sebastian Grail comes to sit with him. He's an immortal who claims to be the Doctor's oldest enemy, and he's come to gloat about how he killed the Doctor and his masters are now the Lords of Time and everything, and they have resurrected this timeline just so he gets to gloat at the Doctor about how he's won. A bit of a mistake on his part. Forewarned is forearmed, and the Doctor and Charley now know about this, and they set off to stop him and his evil machinations and stop his foul masters before he even gets a chance to gloat. The way that this story is structured is brilliant, if not a little formulaic. But if you were going to do a Doctor Who movie, this is how you would do it. It has a tight, timey-wimey, spacey-wacy plot involving travelling through several time periods while paying homage to the original intention of the show, educating the audience on history and science. We learn something new at every stop. We learn all about the court of Edward the Confessor, and that radioactive metals are warm to the touch. In 1806, we learn all about 19th century dueling etiquette, while Charley impersonates someone from a Jane Austen novel. And in Roman Britain, we learn about the different ways that Romans viewed religion. And I'm going to go into detail about this bit because the audio kind of skirts past it, and frankly, I just find it interesting. Before Christianity became the state religion, Romans believed that the prosperity of Rome was based on a pax deorum, meaning peace of the gods. This essentially meant that every deity existed within the same cinematic universe, making religion a bit of a pick and mix for the populace.
I'm shopping around, trying out all the different cults, seeing what suits me.
Absolutely. The only sane thing to do. I still like a bit of the mysteries of Mercury every now and then.
People would hold parties and swap religions with their neighbours to try out different rituals and see if they were right for them. And because everyone's religious beliefs were valid, it largely avoided a lot of religious motivated conflict. It also meant that if anyone went around claiming that their god was the only god and that every other god were either demons or not real, then the people of Rome would not take kindly to that.
You should talk to that Christian down in the village, the Greek. There's a fanatic for you. Do you know he won't admit the existence of other gods?
They won't get very far like that.
I'm amazed they've got this far.
Bit of a tangent, I know, but you know me, I can't help myself. The whole thing reminds me a lot of Blackadder, with this one guy in multiple different time periods whose schemes and machinations always seem to backfire in his face. All he's missing is the theme song and Rowan Atkinson in the role. It does have its issues though, but I don't think any of them really warrant the many bad reviews that this one gets. Give it a listen and decide for yourself. For me, it's one of the classics, and it's one that I keep coming back to. Next is Embrace the Darkness, and by the gods, I forgot how creepy this one is. I think I only listened to it once and mustn't have been paying attention. I must have been mowing the lawn or something, because upon re-listening to this one, I have no idea how this didn't make more of an impression on me.
Mayday, 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 Cimmeria 4 base, loss of power, no light, help us, we're in the dark, help us, help us!
It is intensely creepy and atmospheric. It's a base under siege, set in a system called Cimmeria, which was once famed for the really bright colours that its sun produced. But at one point legend says that that sun went dark, and nobody knows why, and the Doctor wants to know. On the surface of one of these dark worlds is a base containing mining engineers, who are in the process of setting up a fake sun so that it will aid in the process of mineral extraction of this world that they think is completely uninhabited. They're going about their business, playing drafts, giving each other a hard time, just having a laugh, when they are suddenly beset by a horrible pain, and everything goes dark, and creatures are invading the base, whispering in their ears to embrace it.
Why doesn't he stop crying? Stop crying, Harriet! Stop it!
You know why, Ferris, don't you?
The pain.
Have you ever felt anything so terrible?
No. Oh my God. Oh no, please. I don't want to remember it. Oh, no.
I don't think I'll ever forget, for as long as I live. But how long is that going to be?
Before they were joking, laughing, and talking about how they will be leaving this place soon and going home. But now, they get trapped in the dark, alone and in pain, slowly going mad with fear and suspicion. It's the sort of story that could only be done in audio, and it may actually give you nightmares. The performance of the actors really sells it for me. So it's not completely ruined with the inclusion of a goofy rescue robot who wants to kill Charley because she has germs in her. And this robot happens to sound exactly like the robot from the 1996 film Lost in Space.
Destroy!
Yeah, it's a little goofy at times, but overall a good story, and I can't say much more about it without getting into spoilers, so I won't. Just turn on all the lights, put in some noise isolating headphones, and give this one a listen. Next is Time of the Daleks, an audio drama that is difficult to Google because somebody made a board game with the exact same name. The Doctor and Charley are palling around the TARDIS when the Doctor makes a reference to Shakespeare, and Charley not only doesn't get it, she has never heard of Shakespeare.
Oh, Doctor, you can't expect me to know all about the obscure people you come across in your travels.
Excuse me!
She has heard of his contemporaries, but for some reason, despite her going to a school that is very posh and definitely would have taught Shakespeare, she just doesn't know who he is.
You mean to tell me that you know about Ben Jonson?
Yes?
And Kit Marlowe?
Well, of course.
But you've never heard of William Shakespeare?
Never.
That's fascinating. It's also quite impossible.
And it is. You know, considering how he's foundational to most of the Western canon. So the Doctor looks into it, and it turns out that Shakespeare has fallen out of history, like literally fallen out. And he tracks these disturbances to Britain not too far in the future, after the Euro Wars, when all of Europe went to war or something, and Britain is under the benevolent dictatorship of the General Maria Learmonth. And in her lovely dictatorship, more and more people are forgetting Shakespeare every single day. Which is a shame, because the great dictator is herself a massive fan of the Bard. Such a fan that she won't stop stealing lines from his plays for her speeches, and she just so happens to be spending the British people's money on a time machine so she can go back and watch Julius Caesar as it was first performed. And helping her do this is well-renowned Shakespearean scholars, the Daleks!
The Daleks venerate Shakespeare. He is the greatest playwright in the universe.
Honestly, hearing the Daleks quote King Lear is just enough to justify this story's existence. The rest is just window dressing. It's several different flavors of silly, it's about 60% technobabble, and it's also rather fun. It's not the strongest story, and it goes completely off the rails in bits. Before the 8th Doctor's first encounter with his oldest foes, it's not the worst way of doing it. Just turn off your brain and you might get something out of it. Otherwise, feel free to skip this one. Finally, closing out the season, we have Neverland, and this one is very special. It's the finale of the second season of 8th Doctor Plays, and it's a lead up to the 40th anniversary special. And everything that has been built up with the Charley arc and the Web of Time comes to a head in this epic story about a fantastic voyage to another universe that is somehow related to Gallifrey and Mercy Rhymes. The Doctor, Charley, and Romana face the biggest threat to Gallifrey and the entire universe that there has ever been. The Web of Time is cracked and all of history is leaking, like one of those things that you use to strain rice. Like the name escapes me. And at the heart of all the damage is Charley Pollard, and the Doctor faces a horrible choice. Charley, a single wonderful soul who is saved from the airship R101, or the whole of reality. There's so much that happens in this, but somehow they manage to balance things out. Lalla Ward returns as Romana, and Romana has been pretty busy since the Doctor dropped her off in N-Space. She is now Lord President of the Gallifrey, and all of the Time Lords, and the architect of a golden age of integration and cooperation with other species and temporal powers. There's non-Time Lords attending the Time Lord Academy. It's as if she never left, and the 8th Doctor works really wonderfully with her. It's also very lore-heavy, but in a very, very good way. In the past, when they tried to expand the Time Lords and their culture and their history, they somehow always managed to fuck it up. They managed to diminish them, make them less interesting, make them normal and unimpressive. When originally, when they showed up for the first time, they were fucking techno-gods who could destroy you and your entire civilization with just a thought. In this, they managed to build on Time Lord lore in a way that doesn't completely destroy it. A way that opens up new avenues for storytelling potential, which are fulfilled in the Gallifrey spin-off series, which I've only listened to some of. From what I've heard, it's really good. It's got 4th Doctor companion Leela in it, she is awesome, and it's also got Ace in it, she's a 7th Doctor companion, and she ends up attending the Time Lord Academy and getting her own TARDIS, and getting to go on missions for the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency. It's really good, I totally recommend it. This story is about Gallifrey, their past, present, and future, but it's also about Charley, and having to confront her own death. A death that was supposed to happen, which was prevented.
She was nothing. She would amount to nothing. Her descendants would be nobodies. She's nothing special, Doctor. She wouldn't go on to cure a disease or start a war or discover a planet. But her living was a rift, her very being a breach. Charlotte Pollard is a rip in the fabric of space-time, a breach with presence and physicality.
If she had survived the crashing of the airship R101 and lived a long, full existence without the help of the Doctor, her life wouldn't have changed human history in any significant way. Yet her existing at all is causing fault lines to spread and get worse every single place she visits. And if the destruction of the universe being caused by somebody who survived their own death sounds in any way familiar, well, it should. Large segments of Neverland were carved off and used in Season 9's finale Hellbent, when after companion Clara's beautiful death scene, and the masterpiece of surviving your own grief that is Heaven Sent, the 12th Doctor ends up going back to Gallifrey, tricking the Time Lords into letting him remove Clara from her time stream at the very moment of her death, but if he doesn't put her back, the entire universe could fall apart. And it was Moffat who canonised the Charley arc, making this the second time the Doctor has saved someone who should have died at the expense of the universe, making the Doctor look like a complete and total dumbass. In the end, Clara decides that she will go back to the time of her death, but first she's going to run off in her own TARDIS and have potentially lesbian adventures with an immortal that she met in a previous episode, knowing full well that if she ends up falling into a black hole, or getting stuck, or just getting lost in the TARDIS or something, the entire universe will go bye-bye. Which took her from a companion, which overall I was okay with, burns down, falls over, sinks into the swamp, and makes her the most selfish character in all of fiction. Stephen fucking Moffat. I really love your writing, it's what got me into Doctor Who in the first place, but we really shouldn't have given you Sherlock, and I still don't trust you enough to watch the rest of that Dracula adaptation that you made that takes place in the modern day, and why do you keep doing these? Are you allergic to period pieces? And no, I don't think that Stephen Moffat plagiarised Big Finish here, at least not any more than he did when he made River Song. Big Finish and the show share writers, they have writers in common, they also share an ideas bucket. It is impossible for there not to be at least a little bit of overlap, but if you're going to adapt ideas or entire plot threads from a story, at least make sure you understand why the things that you are adapting worked in the first place. When Charley learns that her continued existence threatens everything, she doesn't even flinch. She thanks the Doctor for the extra time, and demands, begs even, that he put her back.
It was me who stowed away on the R101. It was my choice, Doctor. These adventures we've had, these scrapes and japes in Neverland, with monsters and ray guns and magic, they've been wonderful. Better than my wildest dreams. But you can't hide in dreams. It's time to stop dreaming, Doctor. Time to grow up.
Her first instinct is to put others before herself, regardless of what the Doctor wants. India Fisher gives a wonderful performance here. The friendship and the love that these two share. The Doctor trying to have it both ways, and Charley telling him that it's okay, that she is not worth the universe. It's wonderful. So this isn't exactly a spoiler, but if you look ahead in the catalogue, her face keeps showing up on the box art. The Doctor saves the day as he always does, and Neverland ends with a cliffhanger, which may get you really keen to jump straight on to the next one. The official 40th anniversary of Doctor Who, Zagreus. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a multi-Doctor story, including 5, 6, 7, and 8. But I assure you, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. What this is highly experimental, far longer than it really needs to be, and nowhere near as clever as it thinks it is. It's kind of batshit insane, and not exactly for newcomers. This is the kind of story that could really turn you off the franchise, let alone the audios. I am going to need to do a full review for this one. I don't know, I just don't know if newcomers could listen to this one without a guide. I mean, my brain nearly exploded the first time I listened to it. So join me in the next one, where we embrace the madness. Charley grows fluffy bunny ears and a tail, 5 finds religion, 6 experiences bloodlust, 7 finds himself in the middle of a squabble involving talking animals from a fairy tale, 8 gets amnesia, goes insane, and starts calling himself Zagreus, and I make my brother sit through the entire thing and lose his mind for your enjoyment. I'll see you in the next one.